Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's done all the reading there is to read and all the watching there is to watch about Gregg Berhalter today. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello and then some.
And
yes,
then some.
It's been a lot of consumption of media.
It is. I did work too. We are here. It's the Gregg Berhalter Show. So this morning, Sunday morning, this show will probably be received on Monday by everybody. Sunday morning, US Soccer, I'm going to say admitted as opposed to announced.
Yes.
That Gregg Berhalter was their choice for US men's national team coach. There's going to be like a big press conference and all that. Like I assume there'll be like streamers and stuff on Tuesday. But they finally put the press release out today saying Gregg Berhalter is the man, 4-year contracts through the end of the 2022 World Cup.
Yeah, and when we talked about this, I think maybe earlier today before we started recording, like I know that kind of bothered you that it was like once again like everybody else kind of is reporting a thing and then US Soccer announces it. And it
reminded me of like when friendlies are announced by the opposition European team like a week in advance and then US Soccer gets around to it later.
Yeah, and I didn't really mind at the time. Like I was sort of like, yeah, I mean, it's what happens. Like the news gets leaked and that's what reporters do. The more that I've read, the more it sort of was like, of course that's how it ended. Of course.
Okay, so we're not going to be bitter all show about US Soccer's announcement.
Just the first part.
Because at least they gave us a coach. There's that, right?
They did the bare minimum that they had to do.
I'm setting the bar low. On today's show, we are going to talk about the process. Now that we have the whole process, we're going to talk about the process that the US went through, the almost 14-month process they went through of hiring a new US men's national team coach, which is either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who you work for.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Gregg Berhalter himself, what to expect, what style of soccer he likes to play, how he does it, which players might benefit from it, what his team might look like. We're going to look ahead to the future because now we feel like maybe we at least have some sort of future in 2019 and beyond. And then later, we are going to answer a lot of questions we got via Twitter and email.
That
so
is
there's going to
true.
be a Q&A section of the show.
One more thing we got to talk about.
What's
Tyler
that?
Adams. Mr. Tyler Adams. That'll be in there at the end as well. A quick discussion of Tyler Adams. That move to RB Leipzig will be official and permanent come January.
Should we call that dessert?
Yes.
That'll be the dessert.
Yes. Hopefully.
High-calorie dessert. That's how Tyler Adams does all that running.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so let's start with the hiring process.
Sure.
I'm not quite sure where to start, except I think we're both clearly unhappy that it's taken this long.
Yes, and I think Matt Doyle on MLS Soccer said it best when he said like he feels relief that it's over, but not necessarily excitement. And I think that's sort of how I feel. Is I genuinely think if it had been Gregg Berhalter a year ago, which I know wasn't really possible at the time, I think I would have been like, okay, cool, we're moving on. This is exciting. I think I would have that level of enthusiasm, and I don't have it now. And I think that's why we're starting the show the way we are, is because we want to kind of go through the hiring process, our concerns and frustrations with it, but then kind of end that there and focus more on the U.S. national team coach because there is one, and it doesn't really make sense after that point to continue to sort of be
and
sad.
It's not his fault.
/ angry.
It's not his fault. All right, you said Gregg Berhalter could not have been hired a year ago. Is that true? Like after October 2017, we lose to Trinidad and Tobago. MLS season ends not too long afterwards. Why couldn't Gregg Berhalter have been hired in December 2017?
My honest answer to you, and this is not based on anything I know, it is just like a feeling I have had, is that I think he might have been if Sunil Gulati stayed on as U.S. Soccer president.
Okay.
I think that's why some of that reaction was like 2 inches wide and not that big deal. We don't need to burn it all down. That felt to me like we'll get rid of Bruce Arena, we'll do a search, quote unquote, and then Gregg Berhalter will come in.
Why quote unquote?
I mean, just because I feel like maybe there weren't as many candidates then and like in the position where they needed to get somebody in fast and it felt like he would fit.
Yeah.
Then, though, once Sunil Gulati decides not to run again, that's why I say it could have happened then. Because once he says he's not going to run again, he publicly says it shouldn't be on me to hire the next coach. Yeah. That needs to be the next president. So those elections aren't until what, February? Mm-hmm. So then I'll do the very abbreviated timeline if that works for you.
Yeah.
So then we have the presidential.
I'll probably interrupt though, like I just did.
That works. We have the presidential elections in February. Carlos Cordero wins those elections. Part of his campaign is that he wants to install a GM. Mm-hmm. So
General manager.
Thank you. So then that process takes until June, thereabouts, when Ernie Stewart is officially the candidate. Ernie Stewart can't take the job until August.
Because of an agreement he has to finish up some business with Philadelphia Union.
Evidently. In the meantime, I think public priority became securing the 2026 World Cup bid.
Yeah.
Because whether or not you want to believe that factored into this timeline, I think U.S. Soccer will say it did because it's a big thing that then happened. So it's sort of we had to do that. We had to make sure that was done. Then we could move to the next step.
Yeah.
The next step being Ernie Stewart does the search process, and here we are today.
So do we accept that as the reasoning? I mean,
to a point.
I think that's the truth, right? I don't believe that it was always Gregg Berhalter and they almost put on this big theatre of delays. So they weren't sort of CONCACAFing in stoppage time to delay the Gregg Berhalter announcement.
No, I would agree with that. I would say I think Gregg Berhalter from a very early stage was one of their top candidates.
Okay.
I do think that. And I think that sort of maybe is part of why certain decisions were made. We can get more into those later on. But I do think maybe that he was always in the list of candidates and was in consideration from early on.
And I think we should mention this early. It's really important to know that the chief, he was chief financial officer, and then in April he was made chief commercial and strategy officer, which basically means you handle all the commercial stuff. You probably work quite closely with Soccer United marketing. Is Jay Berhalter.
Yes.
He's Gregg Berhalter's brother. He's been part of US Soccer for a long, long time. The chief financial officer, or now chief commercial officer, is essentially the second most important salaried employee of US Soccer. He gets paid, $700,000 or something like that, just below Dan Flynn, the CEO.
Yes.
Right?
And we heard months ago that this was a concern coming out of U.S. Soccer, that they didn't want it to be seen as nepotism. I think that's why we're starting to see the stories about Jay Berhalter recusing himself from the coaching search.
Yeah.
The issue, though, as Grant Wall reported today for Sports Illustrated, he did a very good piece.
Yes,
you
did.
Read that.
Yes, you did.
That basically Jay Berhalter may have recused himself from the coaching search, but he was very much a part of, and if you listen to certain sources that Grant Wall has, he was the deciding factor in hiring Ernie Stewart, who then hired Gregg Berhalter.
Yeah, so you could, if you were conspiracy-minded, you could say that Jay Berhalter is very powerful. He wanted his brother to be US men's national team coach, and that almost it was just like a legitimizing of the process to make Gregg Berhalter the national team coach was to hire the GM, have the search, make Berhalter the coach.
Yes.
I'm saying I don't subscribe to that conspiracy theory, but at the very least, US Soccer has done a very bad job of not making it look that way.
Doug McIntyre had a great line about this. He said, as a former World Cup participant for the U.S. who played and coached on both sides of the Atlantic, Gregg Berhalter was always an obvious candidate. Precisely because that was the case, the United States Soccer Federation should have seen the potential appearance of a conflict of interest a mile away. They didn't. This was totally avoidable.
This, to me, gets to the problem I think I have with US Soccer, and I think US Soccer are doing badly, which is they are not out in front of potential problems. They kind of like to just think they can gloss over it with some good PR language. Right?
Yeah, that might be the best case is that they're trying to get out in front of and try to do the PR that they can gloss over. It's funny you mentioned gloss.
No, I'm saying they're not getting out in front of it. They're just letting the problem rumble
and then
along
deal with it,
and then try and deal with it with some fancy language in the press release.
Even then,
by saying exhaustive search when they announce Gregg Berhalter.
Exhaustive and comprehensive.
And they're like, that covers us. We're good.
But it reminds me of there was a time I painted our living room. This is at our place that we rented. Don't paint a place you rent.
This is you and your wife, right? Not
yes.
You and me.
Not me. But I got the color she wanted, but I got the wrong gloss. So it was super shiny, so I painted the whole room. And I was like, maybe she won't notice. And then instead of just saying I know it's too shiny, and then she came in and very sweetly tried to smile, and it was it's very shiny though. And then I had to deal with it. And that feels like what U.S. Soccer is doing. It's sort of maybe people won't, care too much or know what's going on. And then once it comes out, it's a way bigger deal because you didn't address it up front.
And so here's how if I was hired as a U.S. Soccer crisis management PR type person, I think I would say to them, let it be known Jay Berhalter is chief commercial and strategy officer. And rather than putting it out through back channels, which I feel is what they've done, they've just told certain people, but they haven't actually had a big announcement that this is a thing. You've got to, I think, confront the thing and then put the thing to bed that way, right?
Yes. And I would say, for example, I can't remember if U.S. Soccer came out and said, we actively want to wait until after the World Cup to make a coaching decision.
No, that just dripped out as a possible opinion or story.
Which this is where, maybe this is me asking too much, but I feel that's the case. That's how people are going to interpret that. When you extend Dave Sarachan through the World Cup, the understanding would be...
he was first extended just through the World Cup, not all the way to December.
I mean, he was first nothing, right? He was first, the not even caretaker. It was like the person in charge temporarily.
And sorry, not to take you too far off track, but this is a perfect example of they never really said, okay, it's going to take a while to hire a coach. Everybody sit tight. It's going to take a while. Please be patient. We're sorry. We know you're frustrated. But what we're going to do in the meantime is make Dave Sarachan interim head coach. What happened was they said they were searching for a coach, and then it got really close to the first friendly against Portugal. And then suddenly a story appeared that said, acting head coach Dave Sarachan will select the team for the game against Portugal. There was never a big announcement. There was just we'll try and get away with it, right? I think that's the thing that not only just frustrates me, I think it's a bad communication strategy from US Soccer because it turns fans against the federation, and that's the last thing we needed after Curva in October 2017.
And in some ways, we've met the communication.
I kind of hope they're listening. I kind of hope they don't.
I kind of hope they're not. I kind of hope they are, because we've met the communications officers, and and I know that they're not like of this mentality, but it strikes me as like U.S. Soccer from back in the day when there weren't as many eyes. And so you could sort of just kind of put out a press release 6 months later saying, oh yeah, he's the interim manager. And maybe that many people don't care in say 98 or 94 or whatever. Nowadays, you've got a lot
Definitely
of eyes.
Like 1986.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got a lot of people who care. And I think that's another issue is you're sort of not addressing the people who are actively interested. All that to say, going back to my point, is that if you don't come out and say, to your point, we're going to extend Dave Sarachan through the World Cup, but we're going to continue the coaching search in the time after that World Cup or whatever, it creates this expectation that, okay, so maybe there's somebody who's involved in the World Cup that we're interested in. And then when
that's when we all thought, maybe Osorio?
Yeah, and that's when it comes and goes, and then national teams that were involved in the World Cup start hiring, firing and hiring new coaches, and all these things happen, and you lose that advantage.
And then we're there with our noses pressed against the glass, watching really big name coaches get hired elsewhere. Yeah.
And all that is to say that these are like preventable things.
I see you, Paraguay.
Exactly. And so all of that is to say that these are preventable issues if you deal with them, but if you don't,
if you admit that they exist,
exactly. But instead, it creates more animosity and frustration and confusion within the fan base that boils over. And all that is to say, so then when Ernie Stewart comes in and officially takes the job in August, I guess I'm kind of frustrated with that timeline. And so I think going way back to your original question of is that like a timeline we're okay with? I think right up until Ernie Stewart takes over, and I think if he's going to be appointed in June, I think, what did you say off air? Like, work overtime? Like, take that job.
Yeah, I kind of, in hindsight, I wonder if he thinks it would have been better to do your Philly stuff, but maybe do it in the evening and do the US Soccer stuff during the... I know work-life balance is important, but I think it could have been a bit more accelerated. Right?
Yes, I think so. It could have been more accelerated, and if not transparent, then at least... sort of, I don't know, like I wish I would have been happy if it came out that they'd publicly interviewed people. Yeah. Because right now, what it comes down to is essentially we think there were 2. There may have been as many as 4 official interviews. Yeah. But it started with
2 that we can confirm definitely happened. Yes. Or at least reporting confirms definitely happened.
Exactly.
We can't confirm, but other reporters that we trust can.
Yeah. I can take my guess as to who they might have interviewed, but
I mean, the reporting was that it was Gregg Berhalter, obviously, and Oscar Pareja were the 2 that had a formal interview.
And then there was potentially one other U.S./domestic candidate, and then potentially one from abroad is what some reporting would indicate.
Is that right? Okay.
But all that is to say, so then Ernie Stewart takes over August 1st. He essentially goes about, he wants to create the guidelines, right? Like the overall...
the coach profile.
Thank you for that. The profile. That was the word I was looking for. So he speaks to lots of different people, former players, current players, former GMs, current GMs, to create this profile. Then, working within the profile, he starts from a list of 33 down to 11, down to 2. Yep. Now we're at Gregg Berhalter.
And again, when I see Ernie Stewart describe the process, it actually makes sense to me that he only, he said, he sets a very high bar for an interview. Yeah. And if you're getting interviewed, it's not just an informational thing, it's an actual, you might get the job, let's have this big formal interview, right? Yeah. And that the other stuff was just consideration and conversation. So I think I'm weirdly okay with that. What I look at now is that I think the problem is that Ernie Stewart tried to do too thorough of a job and it took too long.
Can I jump in really quickly to say, because I one thing I hadn't really thought about, and again, this goes back to the Grant Wall piece, which I think is a very valid point, is that if, as Ernie Stewart said, that he doesn't see an interview as a light thing where you come in and then you have a second or whatever.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's a whole long, once you get on the same, you have these conversations and you get to kind of some truth, but then within that truth you have more conversation. Those aren't his words, those are mine, but it becomes this very long process. And Grant Wall's point was, that's great, but that benefits people you already know. That if I have familiarity with one person and not another person, the person who I know, if I'm sitting down for a long, potentially awkward conversation, if I have a little bit of background familiarity or friendship or whatever, whatever, it's going to make it that much easier of an interview than a person who I don't have that relationship with.
Because Gregg Berhalter walks in, it's not like, hello, Mr. Berhalter.
Yeah, exactly.
Please take a seat. Oh, hello,
nice
Mr.
to meet
Stewart.
you.
Like, it's like, hey, Greg, hey, Ernie.
Yeah. We played together.
Yes, we did.
It's
2002 World Cup, right? For those who don't know. Yeah. Berhalter
so,
was one of the centre-backs later in the tournament.
There you go.
In the 2002 World Cup.
So, I mean, that is a thought that I had not had that I appreciate Grant Wall pointing out, because it again just speaks to, I'm not going as far as to say there's this whole grand conspiracy to always put Gregg Berhalter in, but I think it's really easy to make that conspiracy exist, and I think that's the fault of U.S. soccer, that it wasn't a more transparent process to show, look, we went through protocols that make sense, but we can't really articulate them or show them to you. So instead we get this situation where it feels like there's a lot of nefarious deeds going on, even if there aren't.
And then to bring it full circle, this again gets back to my idea that US Soccer just should have communicated that this was going to take a long time, that this was how it's going to be.
100%.
Yes, we know that Jay and Greg are brothers, but like that shouldn't be part of the... Because for me, it's actually not a problem unless he strong-armed everybody around him to hire Gregg Berhalter, which I don't think is what happened, right?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
Not at least Jay Berhalter could be fired, for example, right? He's not like the king of US soccer. He's a well-paid employee, but an employee.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
He's not the king. Yes. So, all right. So then what I would like to do, like before we move on, I just wanted to get to, so we know for sure in terms of the people who were not interviewed, or at least the people we think were not interviewed, because there's a key point there. Peter Vermes, Tata Martino, Juan Carlos Osorio, Jesse Marsh, Greg Vanney, Bob Bradley. Michael Bradley probably also not interviewed for the head coaching job, and Yulen Lopetegui, very famously. Two things there.
He had a phone call kind of returned, right?
Yeah.
Through an agent to say, no, we're good.
It is worth noting, and maybe this has been since confirmed or denied or whatever, but like Oscar Pareja was initially on that list and was reported as not getting interviewed. He hadn't been talked to, and that was official. It's just that after that reporting happened, he then got the interview. Again, I think...
Was it Doug McIntyre?
I think that was a Doug McIntyre report. So... there is a chance that some of those people I mentioned did get interviews, and we just don't know it.
Transparency.
There it is.
Let us know. Tell us. How can it hurt people to know that this stuff happened, right?
Yes.
And I think actually the offense here from US Soccer, assuming there's not a grand conspiracy, the offense is just not respecting fans enough to let them know what's happening.
Yeah.
Right?
1,000,000% that's what it comes down to for me. And I know... Again, maybe this is unrealistic. Maybe it's late in the evening and I'm just being naive, but so be it. Is that like... I think there's a chance that Tata Martino didn't get a look, and maybe Jesse Marsh didn't get a look because U.S. Soccer thought pressing isn't going to work at national team level. That we don't want to have a team that's like, this is just a theory that like if they were like, look, you have limited time.
It doesn't fit the Ernie Stewart profile.
It doesn't fit the Ernie Stewart profile. We're not going to be able to do it. That is, whether or not you want to agree with it, that is an acceptable reason to say these candidates don't fit the system. But if you don't do that, if we don't have an idea of what the criteria was aside from kind of vague things, then it leads us to, well, then why wasn't it Tata?
There is the Tata Martino reason. Yeah. Like, they haven't directly connected this, but Ernie Stewart saying that he wanted like really proficient English because he really believes in the idea that the coach has to communicate technical details and that that's super important. Like, I think that is a reason that he's given. It's just a very bad reason.
But then even then they backed it off.
You can argue about it.
Because Paul Tenorio's piece for The Athletic, where he kind of gets I think an insider's look, or he has some sources that tell him what some of the profile criteria was. Two things stand out to me.
Yeah. By the way, Paul Tenorio hides out in that tiny toilet in US Soccer House that he told us about.
It might work. You never know. One of the criteria was excellent communication skills and understanding of analytics. The other was ability to speak multiple languages what they added there. So now I'm like, well, so then was it multiple languages, or was it like English and then some other stuff too? Again, it just sort of feels like there was a little bit more clarity would have helped us to understand why certain people weren't involved. But as a result, what it looks like is after 14 months, you didn't interview a bunch of people who seemed very qualified for the job and instead went with the person whose brother works for U.S. Soccer and seems to have always been one of the favorites.
All right, to move us on from the communication strategy and all that, one other reason that I'm frustrated with this long search is we're going to talk about the Gregg Berhalter style of play. We'll get into the details later, but it's a style of play that I think if he's going to do a similar thing to what he does at Columbus, which is very possession heavy and it's about sort of opening up opposition, it's not easy to do. It's about a system and it takes a long time for all the players to learn that system. You don't have that much time with the coach at international level. A whole year would have been really helpful.
Would have been very helpful.
This could have been done really early. It really would have literally, I really believe this now, it would have moved the program on a year because these players would have had a year practicing the Gregg Berhalter way instead of the Dave Sarachan way, which is kind of like no very deep specific tactics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that is an opportunity lost at this point.
Yeah.
We're a year behind where we could have been in terms of Berhalter implementing his system.
Or even 6 months, or even 4 months. So I'm with you, and all of that then leads to the kind of prevailing negativity that I think a lot of soccer fans or American soccer fans feel about U.S. soccer and the U.S. men's national team right now. Now, hopefully that's something that will change once Gregg Berhalter officially takes over and is in charge and is running camps and running like the team itself, and that's something we'll be able to see. And I would encourage people to look. I know there are people out there who are just, this is collusion, this is cronyism, I want nothing to do with this. And if you want to feel that way, you can feel that way. But I would say...
But there's still only one US men's national team,
is the thing.
Right? And if you don't like the US Soccer Federation, there's no other US national team you can watch.
Yeah, and so I think that's... And I'm not even saying, so get on board and smile. I'm saying that you can be frustrated with US soccer, but I do not think, as I think this has been said many times, I'm not the first to say it, but... It's not fair to then say, and therefore Gregg Berhalter is a bad coach and I don't like him.
Yes.
I think you can say, I don't think U.S. soccer handled this well and I wish the process had been more transparent. And maybe you can say, I wish somebody else were in charge. But I think until you see what Gregg Berhalter does for the U.S. national team, it's best to withhold judgment and maybe just have a little bit of optimism.
All right. And
for the first time in over a year.
We're going to do that in part 2 of today's show.
That works for me.
But if everything we talked about in part 1, the months-long coaching search...
Man,
if you found you've been losing hair because of it, you are not alone because 66% of men lose their hair by age 35.
Yeah, maybe 66% of all of the people originally considered. We don't know. We don't know if they were losing their hair or not, Daryl. We just don't.
The good news is that now Hims has a solution, a medical prescription solution for male pattern baldness.
That's right. Forhims.com is a one-stop shop for hair loss, skin care, and sexual wellness for men. So if that hairline is slowly started to move backwards or you spotted some bald spots, they are there to help.
Gregg Berhalter just shaved it.
He did.
So that's one way to go. The other way to go is to connect via Hims to real doctors and medical grade solutions. You will get well-known generic equivalents to name brand prescriptions to help you keep your hair.
That's right. So our listeners can get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today, right now, while supplies last. See website for full details. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy, but because of the opportunities Hims provides, you can go to forhims.com.
It's a bit of telemedicine.
There we go. Forhims.com/total soccer. That's FORHIMS.com/total soccer, forhims.com/total soccer.
All right. Thank you to Hims for sponsoring today's Total Soccer show.
Agreed.
All right. Gregg Berhalter.
Let's do it.
3G. As Columbus Crew fans call him. I think, like we said before, it's not Gregg Berhalter's fault that it
We're going to have to keep reiterating
it took 13, nearly 14 months.
Yep.
I'm okay leaning towards feeling good about this hire for the US men's national team. Okay. I'm going to put my cards on the table right there. That's how I feel about it. I have lots of reasons why.
And I am a roller coaster of emotions. So I look forward to this conversation.
Why are you a roller coaster of emotions?
I think, first of all, I would say what I've come down to, it's Bobby Warshaw's line that I really appreciated, which is basically that there was not one – Atlanta fans might disagree, Tata fans might disagree, but there wasn't one candidate that made so much more sense than everybody else. I think everybody who was linked with the job had reasons why they would work and reasons why they didn't. And I think Gregg Berhalter was in that group that made sense and seemed like it would work. And that's kind of where I am, is that it makes sense to me. He seems like a good coach, but there are positives and there are weaknesses and there are vulnerabilities and strengths.
Oh, we're going to talk about all of them in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, Taylor.
And I think I err on the side of, or I'm leaning on the side of, I think he will work, and I think I'm excited to see it. I have my reservations, and so I look forward to maybe having you squash those, and then I can just be happy with my rose glasses.
Well, it's worth saying we're going to have at least a couple of years, hopefully 4 years, to really get used to Gregg Berhalter as coach. My initial impression of him, I've watched a fair bit of Columbus Crew. I've read a lot and watched a lot over the last couple of days to really get an even better feel. I think of Gregg Berhalter as a Bob Bradley or Gareth Southgate-like person, meaning he's not going to come and say big, controversial things. He's almost quiet in many ways, right? Similar to, say, Southgate. Polite, I think, is a good way of putting it, right? He's not going to cause trouble with US soccer or MLS by getting into arguments. He's probably not going to be in a pushing match with a player. He's not going to accuse Fabian Johnson of having a fake calf injury, for example. That's not a thing that Southgate has ever done or Bob Bradley ever did. So I think we're getting that kind of guy, right? And someone who will not give away all their tactical secrets, but will have a clear plan, right? And will, to some extent, let us, the media and public and fans, know what that plan is. So that's the kind of similarity I would draw with Bradley and Southgate.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. And I think with both of those individuals, although I think maybe recency comes to mind, I'll say with Southgate, is that I think Southgate was also key in keeping that locker room happy.
Yeah.
I think go back to like Harry Maguire and the unicorn, unicorn inflatable thing in the pool. Like I think
Berhalter's going to buy. I need 50 unicorns sent to California. Stat.
I have a hard time picturing Gregg Berhalter buying adorable inflatable toys, but you never know.
Send them to San Jose for their February friendly.
Perfect. But I think one of the things from the search criteria was that to me it felt like some of the current and former players indicated that there were some locker room problems with the past managers, specifically one who I guess I don't want to really name names, but was named Jurgen Klinsmann. It sounds like locker rooms were not very cohesive, and it does seem like that is Gregg Berhalter.
Hey, look, even Bruce Arena towards the end, there was that whole Jeff Cameron thing. Jeff Cameron was definitely super unhappy towards the end of the Bruce Arena reign, and he may not have been the only one, because when you've got one unhappy player, you've got probably more than one unhappy player.
And I'm not saying that there is nobody out there who
Omar Gonzalez was shooting on his own keeper, so he can't have been thrilled.
Less said about that, the better. But I would say, there's probably people out there who do not like Gregg Berhalter as a coach. He's probably had run-ins with people in the past, and you can find those people if you so choose.
I don't know if you can.
Well, I think I guess maybe one that comes to mind was the Kai Kamara situation. Didn't seem like that was particularly amicable.
Okay, I'm going to refresh my own memory and listeners' memories.
Yeah.
Kai Kamara was at Columbus Crew alongside Federico Higuain.
Yep.
There was an argument over who took a penalty kick.
Something like that.
That got super serious.
Yep.
And then in the end, I think it was Berhalter's decision to say, all right, we're going to trade Kai Kamara.
Yeah, and so he's had
we'll get another Kamara.
Yeah.
They got Ola Kamara instead.
Exactly, that's all it took. But it's so in that instance, for example, that's what I mean, is that there's probably people who will say oh no, he didn't come in the locker room, but that's
he traded
the person
me
that
for
he been traded. Exactly. So I think that's worth keeping in mind, because it does seem like he is a good locker room manager. It seems like his players want to play for him.
So you're saying that's a positive given the current sort of state of the players. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's also the case that you could tell in that Christian Pulisic comment about, hey, we need a manager with a plan and a system and all that, that he wasn't thrilled about playing for the US national team under Dave Sarachan.
Yeah.
And we can talk more later about what Berhalter's plan and system is. But even that comment suggests a certain level of unhappiness that needs resolving.
Yes.
Yeah?
There needs to be a professional athlete translator so you can really understand what they're trying to say, because no athlete, aside from a very frustrated one, is going to come out and be like, yeah, this is terrible. So they'll say things like, well, there's lots to be worked on, and it feels like we've got a lot of room to get where we need to be.
Like Luther.
Obama's yes. See, I've been watching the Idris Elba series, so I was like, he's good at negotiating, I guess.
I've been living in 2012.
Okay, fine.
Are you ready to talk about the Gregg Berhalter system, or do you want to keep looking bigger picture?
No, I think we can maybe go back and forth, but let's start with the system.
Okay, so if you have never heard of a Gregg Berhalter team or system or seen them play before, if you want the formation, he very much favours a 4-2-3-1, not 100% exclusively. I've seen some 3-4-2-1, but it is a lot of 4-2-3-1. Right? It is heavy on possession. The plan is Columbus Crew. I'm going specifically to Columbus Crew because this is the team he's had since 2013. Keep the ball a lot. They move the ball around, and not just in a we're just moving this just to have it. It seems to me designed to open up space in the opposition and then exploit that space. And the evidence I would use of this is if you think of how many strikers have done really well for the Columbus Crew, Kai Kamara, replaced by Ola Kamara, scored a bunch of goals, replaced by Jassi Zardes, scored a bunch of goals. Every striker it's kind of worked for because they've been able to...
It's been their best season ever in terms of goal scoring.
Is that right? You're right. Because this system, this style of moving the ball around very specifically, it takes a lot of drilling, right? Because each player has to know how to open up space for the next person. It has been somewhat successful for the strikers. That's one example for the strikers.
The reason why Daryl made that clarification is because I made a face. And the reason why I made a face, I don't want to go into this quite yet, but I just want to acknowledge there is also an argument that maybe part of the reason why they're able to score a bunch of goals is because Federico Higuain is very, very good.
Well, he's a huge part of the system. I actually think we should put him to one side because he's the biggest question about whether the system translates.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's leave that for now.
Let me just talk a bit more about the system.
Sure,
right. So 4-2-3-1, the right back and left back. Harrison Afful, for example.
One plays on the right, one plays on the left.
Columbus Crew. But they will get forward, right? So very much a part of the system is those fullbacks go deep up the field, right? Then the wingers, the right side and the left side, they can come in field. And if you've watched any MLS, you will have seen Justin Merrim, like on the left wing, going inside, going at people, having a lot of success. You've seen a lot of that for the Columbus Crew, very little of that at Orlando. So again, it's a part of the system that really suits a player like Justin Merrim. Remember Ethan Finley, how great he looked for Columbus? US national team call-ups, not so good.
Not so much, yeah. So the wing, and then once sold or traded, even less so.
Yeah, so then I think he's injured right now. So the wingers come...
I think he's out of season right now.
Wingers come inside. Things can be two things. Then, there's a playmaker behind. For Columbus Crew, it's Federico Higuain. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. You're okay with me sort of listing this out? This is a team with a playmaker, a number 10 in the very old-fashioned sense, makes the team tick, finds clever passes, opens space up. He's almost there to be part of opening the space to exploit, opening up the opposition, but he's also the guy who can see that space get open and make it happen, right? If you think of was it against the Red Bulls, where there was that pass where all he did was step over it and it went through to Giassi Zardes?
That sounds right, but I think he also did similar bits of skill and trickery against DC United.
Yeah,
so and that's the one that stands out to me of those fullbacks getting forward, the wingers coming inside. It felt like consistently DC were sort of overwhelmed and didn't know where to step and who to put under pressure.
Because you're dealing with, so the wide guys are out there, the fullbacks who are forward, that occupies opposition fullbacks. The wingers come inside, then the defenders have more than they can handle. Then all of a sudden, Federico Higuain has a lot more space to work with because everybody else is occupied.
So that's primarily the attack, looking more at the defense. Then you've got in the 4-2-3-1, you've got the double pivot, which generally was Will Trapp and Artur this season. So you've got a 6 and an 8 in there with Will Trapp dropping very deep at times. Yeah, and that might be maybe an issue.
Yeah, so you are going to see, if he does the same sort of system, you are going to see a number 6 deep line midfielder drop between the centre backs. But here's the Total Soccer Show promise, I hope. It's not going to be as bad as when you used to see Michael Bradley doing it under Jurgen Klinsmann.
I mean, I would agree with that, but I would say it won't even, in my mind, it won't even be similar because the difference there was when Bradley was doing it, it was Bradley dropping in, so you had a back three, and then you had about 40 yards of space, and then you had U.S. players. Yeah. And I think the thing with Berhalter's system is that's why you have the double pivot, that's why you have the 8 to kind of cover that distance.
Yes.
And so then when Will Trapp drops in, the 8 drops further back, the center back spread wide, the fullbacks go forward, and now you've got lots of different options as opposed to Michael Bradley putting his foot on the ball and looking flummoxed.
And if anything, it's designed so that number 6, say it's Trapp for Columbus, whoever it is for the U.S., can hit can make forward passes to the number 8, like you said, or can do big diagonals to find those fullbacks they've gone deep like wide receivers almost, right? Yeah. So then you've got the number 6 sending big long passes out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of, so the 6 and the 8 is basically a classic 6 and 8.
Yeah.
Right? One sits and the other one kind of has license to go hunting.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the number 8 is definitely more of the attack-minded of the two, but that isn't really a surprise given that one of them by nature is called a defensive midfielder.
Right, so I think that's a pretty good description of how the Columbus Crew played. How do we feel about this translating to the U.S. men's national team?
I've got some concerns. I have fewer concerns with the number 6 dropping in because I think as long as it makes sense within the system and the tactics and the formation, it's fine.
Can I just interrupt to say I think we're going to see the good version of that as opposed to the terrible version of that we've seen for a long time.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I am not sure who that number 6 will be, and that will be a question that I think we see resolved over the next year or so. But I think I would warn people is maybe too harsh of a term, but I would prepare yourselves for it to be probably Michael Bradley and probably Will Trapp as 2 of the main contenders.
It's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's very possible.
I mean, maybe it's Tyler Adams, maybe it's Russell Knaus if he has a good January window, January camp, if he gets called in.
I just can't see either of them hitting those big diagonals. Maybe in the future.
It would be tricky.
But maybe it's part of Bradley or Trapp do it for a year and it gets passed on to the next generation maybe down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's possible. But it's the number 10 spot that I to the extent that I'm not even sure if Gregg Berhalter will necessarily do this 4-2-3-1 in this style because there is nobody who can do what Federico Higuain does.
That is true.
And if you need further example, I asked Matt Doyle if he could succinctly explain why Federico Higuain is so good. He said the short version is that it's his brain. He understands where space is going to open up faster than anybody else, and he's pretty inventive once he gets into those spots. My long-running take, this is Matt, is that if his feet were as good as his brain, then Gonzalo would be the other Higuain.
So, can we do a Steve Martin man with 2 brains type thing where we just extract that brain and put it in a US player.
Unfortunately, I think there's a chance that brain is already cap-tied. if you open it up, it's just got a big Argentine flag on it.
You think that's how it is? You can't switch it.
That's how it works. Once you get your cap, your eligibility goes.
Oh, damn that! Yeah. Damn that FIFA small print.
That would be nice though. But I think it's all of the different aspects of the game that Higuaín brings in. It's the awareness, it's the reactions, it's the spacing, it's linking play, it's popping up in areas you didn't expect him to be, it's winning headers in the box. That's all what he does for Columbus.
It's part of what makes that Columbus possession game not be dull and crash against the rocks.
Yeah, I had a quote from Berhalter was, "We're about the collective, we're about 11 players on the day being able to play together in a way that makes it difficult for the opponent." I amended that to, "We're about the collective, we're about 11 players on the day being able to play together in a way that makes it difficult for the opponent, as long as one of those players is Federico Higuaín."
Okay, so let's do it. Who would be the candidates to play that number 10 role? And I think the name that's going to jump to everyone's head is the US's best attacking player, Christian Pulisic.
I was wondering if it was going to be a joke. Yes, it's Christian Pulisic. I mean, I think that is probably the one that most people look to and most people would like to see become that number 10. Mm-hmm. I do not think he's there right now. And so it would require, I think, Gregg Berhalter working with him a lot and there being a very strong relationship there.
And here's the thing. Christian Pulisic can be a number 10, but in a system where the number 10's job is to get the ball and dribble at people. Because that is what he is elite at, right? He's getting the ball and dribbling at people.
Which Berhalter has used in the past. He's used that number 10 as a bit more direct when it is called for.
So I think that's what it's going to be, right? So Pulisic can't do what Higuaín does, because what Higuaín does is lots of clever little touches and passes, and in some ways it's kind of unselfish. Like we said, the example I used was him stepping over a ball, right? Not that Pulisic can't step over a ball and let it go, but what he likes to do is get the ball, run at you. Sometimes he gets tackled, right? That is not a possession game if sometimes you get tackled, right? So I don't think Pulisic is the guy to do the Higuaín role. It's going to have to be some sort of adaptation where Berhalter's US men's national team is different to his Columbus crew, which I think is possible.
I think it's possible. I'll say this, though. I do think it is possible, and this maybe, again, is the naivete or the just enthusiasm for a new coach and Christian Pulisic. I do wonder if there's a chance that he could do that for Dortmund if that's what he was asked to do, but it's not. And he could have done that for the US national team, but instead what he's been told is go make stuff happen, go try stuff, go shoot, be the one that starts stuff. And the one that stands out of my mind, again going back to that DC game in the playoffs for the crew, Higuaín gets a ball into his feet and in a quarter second reads that he's got a player out wide and he's sort of falling over, one touches it wide and then spins around, gets in the box and scores the goal. I think Pulisic is more than capable of doing that, but I think if your brief is when you get that ball, turn and try to create a goal, try to get a shot off, try to make something happen, you're not thinking about lay it off wide and then recycle and try to get in there. If you're told to do that, maybe that's something that you can then do and execute well.
I would say that from what we've seen from Christian Pulisic, his better role in a very Columbus Crew 4-2-3-1 would be to be like a premium Justin Merrim, right? Like a guy who is on the wing, but because of the shape is got fullbacks outside of him, and he can dribble to the interior and go at people. I think he'd actually be a really good fit in that system. But then if he does that, then again, there's no number 10.
There's no number 10. Yeah, and so there may not be. I genuinely don't have that many other candidates for that number 10 spot.
I do, but they're all 33. It's Benny Fairhaber, Sacha Kljestan, Lee Win, I think he's 32. There are guys that I could think of in that mold, but they're not going to be there too long. Again, I would argue that if you're just into the idea of laying the roots of a Berhalter system, I would actually be all in for 1, 2, or 3 of those guys getting call-ups for the January camp, especially when you can only select MLS players. Do it with Benny Fairhaber as the 10.
All right.
Yeah, make him the Federico Higuaín.
I think if we choose to go this route and do a 4-2-3-1 with that Higuaín style number 10, that will be the biggest issue that I'll be looking for. That will be the biggest thing because, as an example, since Berhalter's first season, when he took over mid-season, the famous status he's made the playoffs 5 of 6 times. The one time he didn't is the time that Higuaín played the fewest games he's ever played for Columbus, aside from when he first signed mid-season. He played 20, they finished 9th.
Right.
I have to believe that there's a correlation there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, of course, he's the best player, right? Are there any other candidates like, say, Darlington Nagbe? I know he's not a 10, but he does have an eye for space and passing.
I mean, again, I think it will come down to how he's used and what you want that number 10 to be. I think he could be that player who finds space and finds players running through. I don't know if he does as much chance creation and overall goal scoring. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably then about modifying that position a little bit. Oh, Daryl just got excited.
I'm just thinking of the future, right? Mm-hmm. Long term. Not January, not even maybe next year. Mm-hmm. The new guys, like Alex Mendez, someone like that. These new guys that are coming through.
And if
I don't want to get overexcited because I know it's the future and he hasn't played in the top flight yet.
Well, can we talk about that for a second, about short-term, long-term expectations, or maybe just in terms of roster expectations? I think one thing that you've kind of hit on a couple times is that veteran players that I think a lot of people or some fans would like to see maybe moved on, and then we focus on the younger.
Let's name them. Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, 2 examples.
I mean, but even Benny Feilhaber, Lee Wynn, those guys. I think nobody is looking at those two and saying that's the key to 2022. But I think we've got to kind of remove that from the equation, because if the idea is we want to play a system and a style that makes sense and everybody's on the same page, you can't do that by throwing different people around, and you can't do that by constantly experimenting. Mm-hmm. You do it by putting in, as Gregg Berhalter has done time and time again, putting in the best personnel for that position for that game. And if it is Benny Feilhaber as that number 10, maybe he does that for a year and it works. But in that year, we're also seeing who else can do it. And other people are learning how to do it from what Benny Feilhaber does.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it's going to be Benny Feilhaber in 2022, but it's going to be him kind of establishing the foundation, potentially, as an example, for players to come.
I'll be honest, when I see a tweet or an opinion or anything where someone is saying, we can't select this guy, he'll be X years old in 2022, I always just think, that's not the correct way to look at it, because you've got to think of the long-term process, especially now we have a coach who is going to be trying to implement a process.
And really, when it comes down to it, we don't have the luxury of doing that. We don't have the luxury of saying, sure, this player who might be the only one who can do this well, but I'm kind of frustrated with him and I have my beef with him, so no, he's on the out. I really think, and I do have faith that Berhalter will kind of approach this with, everybody is eligible now. Let's see. I mean, not everybody, because we've already established Higuain's brain is not. But everybody in the U.S.
check
pool.
On the brain thing.
And with that in mind, we had a conversation about who do we think might benefit the most from this. I genuinely think it's Michael Bradley. I really do think. Because, look, I know he's in contention.
So many people are so angry right now.
That's fine. And I'm going to double down.
I'm not Taylor. I'm not angry at you.
I'm going to double down on this because I still believe that Michael Bradley is and could have been one of the best players for the U.S. national team that we've seen in a long time. I think he has been misused. I think he's moved around, and so he's never had an area for the national team that he can really focus on. And I think for at least the last 5 or 6 years about that, he hasn't had much instruction. And I think it's been a lot on his shoulders. I mean,
he had too much authority and not enough instruction.
1,000,000%, man. And I really believe the story that came out on The Ringer about the U.S. under Bruce Arena and Jurgen Klinsmann. I believe the Brian Strauss reporting about U.S. soccer under Jurgen Klinsmann way back when.
2013.
And I think it was Michael Bradley figuring stuff out in the tunnel, walking onto the field as to how, him and Jermaine Jones kind of figuring stuff out. And I think that if you have a coach come in, this season with Toronto, maybe not a great example, but the 2 seasons before that, when you have a coach telling him what to do and how to play, he can do that. And I think if he's got the personnel around him who are also aware of the game plan, I think it makes him look better as a result.
I want to jump to ideas about sort of
Daryl at TotalSoccerShow.com for those criticisms.
How Berhalter operates.
Sure.
I read stories about when he came into Columbus Crew, he didn't lay down the law, hey, we're doing possession style, everybody get better at it. He apparently
that would be bad coaching.
He apparently did a lot of sort of explaining it to players and asking for their buy-in, right?
Yeah.
Even, I know we keep going back to Higuain, which is really weird because I know he's not US eligible, but he seems to be the key to all this. He said that Berhalter explained the system to me, the possession system, and I was like, I'm not sure this is going to work.
Yeah.
But he slowly persuaded me, and now I love playing in this system. I really love the idea of a coach saying, just persuading people, this is how we're going to play, and doing it in a positive way, not an authoritative, iron fist kind of way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because, you could see it 2 ways. There's been the kind of stories coming out that maybe U.S. players haven't been so excited to show up to national team training, but maybe it's the case that the bar is now so low that you show up and he's got an actual plan and training makes sense and it follows a logical... Or even just this... What we do in the first part of practice informs what we do in the last part of practice. Yeah. That might be enough to make everybody be like, whoa, it's a whole new day.
And that follows into a specific thing we'll do on game day, right?
I hope everybody shows up for the first camp and he's like, we're going to do yoga today and never again. And then he laughs and says, just kidding.
And I'm changing all your nutrition.
Exactly.
And another thing is, we use this as a criticism almost because it goes from Jay Berhalter loves stats, Eddie Stewart loves stats, Gregg Berhalter's a stats guy. I'm at least excited for I don't know how stats-heavy Bob Bradley was. I don't think stats were that great between 2007 and 2011. They're really good now. Apparently, Gregg Berhalter is a big expected goals guy. I'm at least excited to have a coach who's into data in that way.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and I think I'm excited about that, if for no other reason than because, to me, if you're people who are excited about expected goals like talking about expected goals. And I feel like that means that maybe we'll get more informed press conferences and more of an idea of like, this is why this didn't work, or we tried this and we assumed it would work this way, but instead it had like, I think U.S. soccer fans are kind of desperate for somebody to actually tell them what's going on and not say things like, well, you know, there are others ahead or whatever like that.
I want to say, in my experience, it's maybe a little skewed by the type of listeners we get to this show.
Yep.
But maybe with the exception of Dutch fans, American fans seem the most interested in tactics.
Yeah, I think
right?
so.
And not just big narratives about whether Wayne Rooney should be selected or what Raheem Sterling's tattoo is. I'm looking at you, England fans and English media. US fans really care, and we've been absolutely starved from the coach in terms of giving us information to eat.
100%. So
hungry for tactics, Greg.
There we go. Hungry for tactics. Hopefully he provides.
Okay, the other thing is you are going to get now, if we think that we know what Berhalter's style is, I feel like he's going to tell us this is what I've got planned. And I feel like he's going to tell us if there are changes. I'm hoping he will tell us, okay, we found out this doesn't work for a US national team. We're going to do this instead. And we will be able to hopefully see actual experiments happen. Like, I think the big one will be, who's the Higuain, right? So we'll be able to know, like, okay, he's trying this guy in this game. And then we have like a base to judge how someone is doing within a certain system.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, fingers crossed for that, right? I could be wrong and it could be an absolute disaster, but that's my hope.
I mean, maybe. But I would say, with that in mind, though, like, lower the expectations a little bit. Not you, but just generally speaking. Like, the expectations for that introductory press conference, because nobody has ever come in and said, like, yep, I'm doing this in my first 100 days. You never want that commitment, because then if it doesn't work, you have a obvious thing that's gone wrong. So I will be very interested to watch that introductory press conference to see how he answers some questions, because I imagine the Higuain thing will come up. Where do you envision Christian Pulisic? Are you going to call back in Michael Bradley? All that stuff will probably be asked, and I want to see how he answers it. But more importantly, I want to see how he actually answers it on the field come January and February.
Let's get to why might this not work?
Sure.
So I think we've talked ourselves, even in the course of this conversation, into being kind of positive about quite a lot of aspects. He's not like a 100% perfect coach, and we're all convinced he's the best coach ever, right? So what are the possibilities for Gregg Berhalter not working out as US men's national team coach?
Sure. I think maybe this is a bit more roundabout, but I would say one of the concerns I have is youth development and his use of young players with the Columbus Crew. In 2018, they were, of the 12 playoff teams, they had the 6th most homegrown player minutes, which isn't that bad until you realize that I believe literally all of them are Will Trapp. So when you look at that, you look at the fact that he waived, or the Crew under his direction waived Roman Gall. They waived Ben Sweat. Make of that what you will. Exactly. But it's still, it feels like a lot of his young American development hangs on Will Trapp and Zach Steffen to some extent.
Ooh, okay. So that worries me a little bit, because there is a chance that he comes in and he's just not interested yet in Tim Weah, Josh Sargent, Weston McKennie, et al. I feel like it would be hard to ignore those guys given the generation gap.
I'm pretty confident that none of them will be involved in the January camp.
Right.
That's a controversial statement.
Because they can't. Okay.
I guess Sargent could be, if maybe, but that tells us where he is with his club team.
One concern I have is that the most... I think I read this, in a Matt Doyle story, maybe. I hadn't thought of it until he said it, but the most successful US teams have been counter-attack teams, right? Gregg Berhalter's system is not a counter-attack system.
It is not.
The US has never had, unless I'm wrong, a successful era of possession soccer, right? The upside is that maybe because through 2019, we're mostly playing CONCACAF teams, right? Gold Cup in the summer, CONCACAF Nations League in September, October, maybe World Cup qualifying in November. So we can be a possession team for a year, but we're probably going to have something else when we come up against a Brazil or a Germany or whatever. So I don't know if there's a plan B to handle the big boys, right? Because Columbus Crew, maybe they have one of the lowest salaries, so sometimes they come up against higher salary teams and there's maybe some sort of a gap and they punch above their weight. But that gap is not as big as the US versus Brazil, right?
I promise this is, I hope, the last time I take us back here. If only there was some sort of process that we understood in which he were asked that question and we knew how he answered it, about how he would deal with different types of opposition and how he would prepare the U.S. accordingly and what obstacles he might see. If only there was some sort of process that we could have been informed about.
Do you have any other concerns before the whole thing starts?
Genuinely, my biggest concern is that number 10 spot. It is... Because Higuain is and has been so important to Columbus Crew, but especially Columbus Crew under Gregg Berhalter's tenure, how you replace him or if you attempt to replace him, it's something I want to see what he does, but it is definitely a concern of was that how he was able to create chances? Because there was the criticism of his time with Hammarby in Sweden, where it was that they didn't really create many opportunities, that he wasn't seen as an attacking coach. And the big thing about that turned that around was it feels like the presence of Higuain.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay. I don't have any other concerns that come to mind straight away, except maybe a concern about myself, which is I'm getting excited about Gregg Berhalter. I was also excited about Bruce Arena. Yep. I thought it was the right hire after Klinsmann was fired to see us through World Cup qualifying and then someone else to take over afterwards. And obviously that did not work out all that well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a thing that I've been battling a little bit is if you go back and listen to the shows after Klinsmann is fired and Bruce Arena comes in, you and I are so excited because Bruce Arena is going to bring organization and there's going to be a clear game plan. And you started to see that in those first few games. And then everything went the way it did. And I have that fear of what don't we know? What might be that issue?
It's fear of the unknown, right?
Yes. Yeah. But I would say this, by all accounts, Bruce Arena, as he has aged, has been less inclined to compromise, less inclined to change his approach.
Oh, he laughs in the face of stats.
And exactly, laughs in the face of stats, and I think you can see it in his player selection. I mean, literally playing the same team. But just that, no, these are the players who are going to do it, and then we'll look elsewhere, don't question. And I don't think that is not the vibe I've gotten from Gregg Berhalter. That is not the vibe I've gotten from what I've read and seen of Gregg Berhalter. So that is the thing that I'm kind of hanging my hat on as hopefully being the difference there, is that he comes prepared with a game plan, but is willing to adapt that game plan if need be.
All right. Before we move on to taking questions from Twitter.
Sure.
Yeah, this feel good to you? If this has left you hungry for the future of US soccer.
Have we already done an hour?
We have already done an hour. There is a lot. Well, 50 minutes. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
If you're hungry for the future of US soccer and hungry for food, or if you're going to be so busy thinking about the US men's national team that you don't have time to go out or go grocery shopping, we have a sponsor for you. That sponsor is Blue Apron.
With the holidays fast approaching, meal prep is the last thing you want on your plate. Or, if you're preparing for...
the January camp holiday. That's what
there it is. That's what I was about to do. You beat me to it, you jerk. Starting in January, Blue Apron's chefs have teamed up with health and wellness experts at Weight Watchers to design a variety of delicious recipes that make cooking for a healthy lifestyle easy.
Oh, Weight Watchers has been rebranded as WW.
So excuse me.
It's almost a wrestling federation.
They didn't quite go full commitment there, yeah.
So the new WW Freestyle plan features 6 chef-designed recipes every week.
WW Freestyle, I do believe, is an actual belt you can win in the WWE.
Is that right?
No, it's not. I'm just making that up.
So I know that when I use Blue Apron, it has taught me some new tricks in the kitchen. Yeah, because...
What'd you learn?
With the recipe cards, I forgot what it's called now. I learned how to make this Moroccan baked dish that has 2 eggs dropped in the middle, and the eggs are then, I think, baked in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
That makes sense.
Somebody out there will know the name of it. I had no idea how to do that. I apparently no longer know what it's called, but I did learn how to cook it that one time.
Humor me. Is it more than just drop the eggs into the spot where the eggs are supposed to go?
No, you make the hole for the eggs in this baked tray.
So that's what you learn how to do.
Yes.
I got you. Okay.
I know I learned how to make the whole dish. I just can't remember the name.
Understood.
Of the dish.
I got you. Okay.
I didn't come here to be interrogated.
Blue Apron makes it easy to select recipes for a variety of diets. Darryl Grove is vegetarian.
Yeah.
They have accommodated, and I believe, from what I understand, been quite delicious as well.
They have the most recent vegetarian recipe is creamy saffron risotto.
Ooh.
For you meat eaters out there, there's Korean-style popcorn chicken.
That sounds delicious to me. Both of those sound delicious
because
to me.
I won't be ordering that. There's more of that available for everybody else.
There we go. That's so kind of you. And most kind of all is that you can check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free at blueapron.com/TSS. That's blueapron.com/TSS.
Worth noting before we move on to Twitter questions that we didn't make clear what's happening in the January camp, right? There's going to be the January camp where you can basically only call up MLS players.
Yep.
That's all that's available. Then in very early February, Gregg Berhalter's debut as coach will be in San Jose, right? At the Aviva Stadium.
I believe so.
Is it the Avia? That stadium in San Jose with the big bar against Costa Rica. So Gregg Berhalter's debut will be against Costa Rica in early February, just so you mark it on your calendars. There's an international window in March. We don't know who US Soccer is going to schedule in March. So we'll just cross our fingers for someone beatable.
Cross our fingers for someone beatable, indeed. I'm sure they'll love that. That won't be locker room material at all. So let's get to some Twitter questions. I guess it's worth noting up front that we may have already answered some of these in our previous hour talking about the U.S. national team.
We'll just refer back to our early answers maybe with a quick recap.
Sure.
Fair? Yeah.
Yes. So first question comes from at DGB_Jayhawk. Can we all agree to a one-day window to grouse about the process, and beginning Tuesday, the focus is only about soccer? We've all heard and said the possible complaints about the process by now.
I think we can agree to that. Yeah. We basically did it on the show, right? We opened with the complaining, and then we got into all the actual what's Gregg Berhalter, the coach, like.
Yeah.
I can agree to this as long as there isn't any more news coming out from US Soccer.
That's literally what I was going to say.
Any more bad news. If we find out anything else about the process that is a bit worrying. And also, honestly, I'm still not thrilled with the federation because of how this whole thing has gone down. But we're not going to roll into the studio every day and complain about US Soccer because that would get really old really fast.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think
there are Twitter accounts where you can find that.
I'm aware of my feelings towards US Soccer. Well said. I'm aware of my feelings towards US Soccer, at least my current feelings right now. It's not worth kind of letting those color every aspect of our coverage from now on. But yeah, I'm with you that if a tape emerges of Carlos Cordero saying, I always wanted Gregg Berhalter, that might change things a little bit for me.
But don't do it for over a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, at Jonas Miles says, I've asked a new employer to give me a month to wrap up my job. Never asked for 14 months, though. Why didn't this happen a year ago? Have we answered this one already?
I believe we have.
So US Soccer would say it didn't happen a year ago because presidential election, World Cup bid, then we had to hire Ernie Stewart, then eventually we got to Gregg Berhalter. Actually, US Soccer would say because we were really thorough.
Yes,
which I think is their blanket they're trying to put over the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably how they would have answered, and probably with a annoyed laugh as well in there, an annoyed chuckle. Fred Films with 2 S's. Not sure if this is correct, but do we know who else was up for coach, and do we ever find out who turned down the job?
No one turned down the job?
Not that we know of.
As far as I know. I don't think... So Oscar Pereira took the Tijuana job, right, in Liga MX. I don't think he was offered it. I actually think the number of journalists, Doug McIntyre, Roger Gonzalez, Paul Tenorio, Grant Wild, a lot of people had sources. We would have heard about it if someone had turned down the job.
Yes, we would have. I would say this. Oscar Pereira, the story was that he included a provision in his contract that if he were offered the U.S. job, he could get out of his contract to take it.
His Tijuana contract?
Yes, which maybe says to me that he was talked to while those negotiations were happening, which is why that was in there.
Oh, so he could have been announced as Tijuana coach, but then if he took the U.S. job a month later, he'd be the least popular man in Tijuana.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't think maybe it will leak a few times as to who else was interviewed. The only one that I've heard with some amount of regularity is that there was potentially one international interviewed.
David Moyes was there that one time, remember?
He was.
He appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared.
But the one that I heard...
New Jersey Transit.
I heard more spread out was Frank de Boer. Frank de Boer was the one who I heard, and that would make sense from the Dutch connections with Ernie Stewart, with not having a job anymore.
Which de Boer was the Crystal Palace coach?
That would be Frank de Boer.
That was Frank de Boer?
Yeah. I have no idea what Ronald de Boer is doing. I assume coaching with Frank.
At Scuba Steve 4, Scuba with a K? Is it always with a K? Scuba Steve 4
it is not.
Asks, do you think the frustration of the general fan is justified given that Cordero explicitly stated he wanted time to hire a GM to make these on-field soccer decisions?
Yes, I do. And I do because I think the timeline removed. I understand that timeline. I understand why maybe you couldn't have made significant moves until, say, June. If you really want to say it, August with Ernie Stewart. But I think the difference for me, the reason why I'm frustrated is because with that, if you said, look, we're going to hire somebody in 14 months, if you told me that after the Trinidad loss, I would have been real mad, but I would have maybe been calmed by, okay, but that means you're going to talk to tons of people and there's going to be interviews and like maybe you're going to try to get Guardiola or something like that. And so I think that is a reason for fans to be frustrated that we kind of don't know who was interviewed. We might not ever know who was interviewed. And so we're kind of left to our own devices to try to figure it out. And we're left to the people who are working very hard to report these stories.
Okay, can I make a quick analogy?
Sure.
It's as if they showed up very late for something.
Yes.
Right? If I was arranging to meet you at 9 o'clock and I show up at 3 p.m. And I've got this whole like weird story that I'm obviously making up on the spot, or it seems like I'm making it up on the spot, you are not going to feel good about me being late, right? But if I call you ahead of time and say, hey, Taylor, I'm really sorry. It's going to take a long time. There's this thing going on. There's this thing going on. Can you just hang tight till this time? Then you'd be a lot more forgiving.
Yeah.
That US Soccer did the former, not the latter.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we've talked about this before, and this might mean we never get credentials again, whatever. But like, the operative.
Don't say that. I want credentials.
The key word. I mean, me too, but not at the expense of this. Which is that like the key word that you said in there was "I'm sorry." And like, there's never been that. There's never been the apology. There's never been the, look, we're working on it. We're trying to solve it. Here's some cheaper tickets. Here's some cheaper prices. Here's the actual kickoff time. Like, there hasn't been that stuff to really engender any goodwill.
Yeah.
And instead, there's been it almost feels like there's been an expectation of like, we'll do it when we do it, and that should be good enough.
Yeah.
And that's not good enough.
I actually think the problem is that US soccer has had to in the past act as if it's a big organization, like the fronting essentially.
Yeah.
And now we get to a point where they are a bigger organization than they used to be. But when you are actually big, you can show humility and still be powerful.
Yep.
But I think they think it would weaken them to show any humility.
Yeah,
right. I'm
absolutely.
psychoanalyzing US soccer, which is a legal entity as opposed to people, but I think I'm right.
And I'll add this as well. Like, we talked to Carlos Cordero after the elections. We got his information. We emailed him several times. He didn't want to come on the show.
Yeah.
So like,
a lot of the candidates did. He did not. Yeah.
Exactly. But I feel like we were there. We would happily talk. We would have that conversation. We would talk to people. But here we are.
Should we move on to Berhalter related tweets?
That's probably
Twitter
a happier
questions?
way to go. Yeah.
All right. First one is from, I've skipped the queue, but I'm going to keep talking.
Go ahead.
At JimmyG_3. What is Berhalter's system and what players fit into that system?
Sure.
We've definitely described the system already. 43-1 possession.
But I wouldn't mind getting back into which players would fit that system.
Okay.
Because I do think there's a few, unless you wanted to save this for later, I do think there's a few that maybe haven't had the best time of late, that maybe we see happier.
Who are you talking about?
I think Bobby Wood. Bobby Wood. Think about what we've talked about with Kamara and then Gyasi Zardes, and about how removing the Higuain issue from the equation, like, he gets the best out of strikers that, like, people were so confused when that trade happened and Ola Kamara went to the Galaxy and Gyasi Zardes came the other way. And yet Gyasi Zardes, I believe I'm correct in saying, had the most goals of any American playing in Major League Soccer last season. So it does feel like Gregg Berhalter knows how to get the best out of that target striker. That is a person who has been Bobby Wood, who has been running and trying to hold up and hasn't had anybody around him. And similar to what I said about Michael Bradley, I feel like if there's a system in place that supports that target striker, that's something Bobby Wood hasn't had at the U.S. national team, maybe ever, but at least not in recent memory.
I guess that could also be for Josie Altidore. I think it would suit him and hopefully Josh Sargent. So essentially the lesson of Columbus is any striker, as long as they're half decent, can be served by this system.
Yes, but if you'll indulge me, I have got one more, and I think it's really important. It's a guy that we've been very excited about, but I feel like it's wavered a little bit. It's Weston McKennie, who has not looked that good for the national team in some of his recent appearances. And again, I think that's because if you're a number 8, but you're also kind of a number 6, and occasionally you're number 10, but then you're over here, but then you're over there, there's no consistency. You don't start to kind of figure out what's expected of you every single game. You're trying to figure it out as you go, and I think that hasn't helped him. Again, it's a very young player who hasn't had a lot of instruction at national team level.
Ooh, one thought I just had is I'm not sure we have necessarily the right back who can deliver the Harrison Afful style crosses and service and that extra. Like, DeAndre Edlin is good at certain things. He's not great at like technical skills when he gets forward. I know he's a Premier player, all that. It strikes me that we might see some experiments with some. We have so many midfielders, and there's only going to be, like, if it's a 4-2-3-1, only 2 holding midfield spots. We might see experiments like Tyler Adams at right back or Weston McKennie at right back, and I would not be against it.
Yeah, and so I have,
because they'll get forward. They won't just be like sitting there in a back 4.
Yeah. And I have Reggie Cannon on that list as well.
Reggie Cannon, yeah.
So I mean, I think right back is one where we may see some experimentation for sure.
And if you're really angry about the Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie playing right back for the national team suggestion, just pretend you didn't hear it, and please don't tweet at me.
There we go. I think there's also maybe a chance that we see Zach Steffen in goal. I think that might happen. I think he fits the Columbus system
at least once, right? At least once. But we might not see him in January, right?
This
if
is
his
true.
move to Man City has already happened.
This is true.
Phil Grooms of the USL show. He's been a guest on the Top Draw Soccer show as well. Phil Grooms asks, sorry, I've asked 3 in a row now.
I'll ask this one then.
Yeah, go for it.
This one's hard. Phil Grooms, how does Berhalter use his lesser players in Columbus to be successful?
Oh, no.
Basically, what system helps them overachieve? And similarly, how would you set up the USMNT to overachieve?
I think if you're Gregg Berhalter, it's just having a system, right? There's the whole thing of the system is the star. And you've got to be a player who, whatever your limitations, you just understand your role within that system. Then it all clicks together and you're part of a successful system.
Yeah, and this is
too basic of an answer?
No, and I'm going to make it even more basic. To your point about Blue Apron, like you learned how to cook those eggs within that dish, but you fundamentally understood.
Someone please tell me what the name of that dish is.
But you also fundamentally understood how to cook eggs to begin with. And it wasn't like somebody said, hey, make that dish even though you've never used eggs before.
Right.
And I think that's the foundation, is that you can have, it's not like it's always the exact same thing every single time. That doesn't really work either.
Yeah.
But you have the foundational knowledge if you're the starter or the third string right back.
I know how to crack the egg without the yolk going everywhere.
Exactly.
Right.
And so then you can sort of, if you're asked to go in there, it's not quite plug and play, but it is, you've been drilled, you've watched that player do that job. It's not like, hey, our right back's injured, you're going to go play right back, but I need you to do wildly different things than you usually do.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Sure. Comes from, I would spell this out, except that I feel like it's a reference to Max Bretos, because I believe it's yes, but it's EEYEAHSS.
Oh, Max he just came and went. He was here for a second.
He's
gone again.
He stopped in and then dipped out. Is he likely? I also think I did the Mac from Always Sunny when he's a British guy. Is he likely to match players to his system or vice versa? Are there national team managers from elsewhere who look to match players to their system?
I think he will match players to the system. I think he will match players to the system. National team managers elsewhere, I use the example a lot, but Gareth Southgate.
That's what I would go with right away.
Took over England, said, hey, we're going to play out the back. Sorry, Chris Smalling, you're not welcome.
Yep.
That's kind of how it went down, right?
Yeah. I mean, and even to the extent of like having Kyle Walker as a center back in a back three. Like that is taking a player who doesn't play that position.
Pace was paramount.
Exactly. And so you're looking at what you need that player to be and what that position needs to do for the team, and then you figure out the person who fits there the best.
And I'm actually hoping someone like Matt Miazga and John Brooks, this might suit them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's a possession style. They're both better with their feet than other centre-backs.
Let's hope so. One more, or do you want to take back over?
Back to me. Okay, we'll get the order right now. We'll go back and forth. Iris Girl 8991. What is Gregg Berhalter bringing to the pitch that the old coaches failed to do? How is he an improvement?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a minor example, but it's worth noting, going back to the use of analytics and statistics.
Yeah.
I think of Gregg Berhalter as, in a lot of ways, not just from like kind of physically, similar to Bob Bradley in that he seems big on preparation.
He hasn't gone full shave yet, but
he is not. He does seem like a pretty serious fellow who takes preparation and practice and everything very seriously. But I feel like he has, looking at those analytics and the use thereof, it sort of is that, there's that little twist of modernity to it that I think that is a big part of what he's bringing. Did
you read the Portenorio story from 2017 in 442? Where he talked about he was interviewing Gregg Berhalter, and Berhalter. So Berhalter's played in the Netherlands, he's played in Germany, he's played in England for Crystal Palace. Obviously, he's played in MLS for the LA Galaxy, and apparently he used to keep a notebook of all the training sessions, the coaching sessions that he really liked and what they did, and he just kept detailed notes throughout his career. That's the type of guy he is. He's a nerd, and I love him. Which started with, and I think this again goes back to maybe some of why he was a preferred candidate of Ernie Stewart. He's a nerd who was steeped in Dutch soccer, and and that's where that notebook began, was like learning all of the idea of Dutch philosophy when it comes to soccer. Not a lot of U.S. coaches have that. Not a lot of U.S. coaches. Another thing that Daryl mentioned, I think when we first started talking about what we wanted to see from a national team coach, one of your criteria that was definitely ticked off is somebody younger. And I believe he is the youngest national team coach we've had since Steve Sampson. 44, 45? Yeah, thereabouts. I think Steve Sampson was 41. But it's not a retread. It's not a 65-year-old who's been there and he's managed 4 other national teams to varying degrees of success, and now he's going to do the same thing here. Goose Hiddink? Yeah. Next question? Sure. Could we, the fan base that seems at best... Die Luke die. D-Bart, D. Could we, the fan base that seems at best underwhelmed by this hiring, be missing something? Could there be something bigger than wins that Stewart wants from a new head coach? I think the thing bigger than wins is a style of play. Yes. Right? I think that's maybe the main thing. Yeah, and I think maybe what that harkens to is there's a lot of frustration that Gregg Berhalter hasn't won anything. That they made MLS Cup 1 year, didn't win it, didn't win Supporter Shield. Well, if you want to be real pedantic, you could say if he made MLS Cup 2015, then he won the 2015 Eastern Conference Championship. I do not want to say that. I know we're all excited about that. You don't want to say that. I don't blame you. Not so much. But I think that is a criticism that he hasn't won that silverware. But I don't think that was something, again, I'm just guessing, but I don't think that was something that Ernie Stewart was necessarily looking for of what was in the trophy cabinet. And if you want to put it that way, like having the US job is about having a team that is not a top team, getting them to play, to punch up, right? This isn't a job where you're Brazil and you're expected to win trophies, so therefore you need a history of winning trophies. Yeah. Right? And it's different.
And I guess maybe this is going to be a bit out there, but like that you have won things in the past does not guarantee that you will win them again. Case in point, Jose Mourinho. So like I guess I mean to say that if just because you've won a trophy here, you've won a trophy there, it doesn't prepare you for Honduras in the summer. Like it is a different animal. It is a different entity. Yes, you want proof that a person can compete and win. I do think Gregg Berhalter has established that. You cannot overlook the situation at Columbus the past couple seasons, and that has to factor into the players he had at his disposal.
We have a question about that.
There we go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, I don't know if anyone asks about this, but US Soccer, in their press release, which I was very critical of because they put a big spin on it, the thing they decided to lead with is how much US national team experience Gregg Berhalter has, right? I'm not buying that as a great reason for him to be a coach. Like what you did in your playing career is not necessarily a great thing for what you're going to do in your coaching career. But the fact that he has been down to Central America and the Caribbean in CONCACAF qualifying at least means that it's not the first time for him. Like it was the first time for Jurgen Klinsmann when he went down there. It's only a small thing, but it is a thing.
Yeah, and if
this is not an answer to a question. It's just a thing.
No, but it kind of is because again, I think for me that says something about what those current and former players that Tenorio listed, what they were asked about and what they answered.
To.
Yeah, and I go back to like I don't know why I keep referencing Jose Mourinho, but I do. Like Sergio Ramos when he got into it with Jose Mourinho, it was about you don't know what we're doing, you don't know what it's like to play at this level, you don't know what the experience is, and I think that's a big deal.
He's probably full of anti-inflammatories.
That is probably true. Allegedly. But then it's also the case that, like, I think recent managers,
ironically,
particularly Jurgen Klinsmann, I think didn't do a good job managing that locker room and making players feel valued and heard and as a cohesive whole. And I think it's no surprise then to me that that's what they lead with is veteran U.S. national team player commands the respect of players past and present, and I think that probably is something that the players talked about was they wanted a cohesive locker room led by a person who's been there, and he has.
And we sent a video of the 2002 World Cup to Christian Pulisic to convince him. Here's a weird idea: the idea of like possession football.
Yeah,
how does that excite you to think? Because it excites me to think that we could go down to Honduras and not just scrap out a draw, but control the game with possession football and win 2-0 and then get back on the plane and come home? Or am I being super unrealistic because it's not possible to do that away in CONCACAF?
I don't think you're being unrealistic. I think you're being super hopeful, which I think, again...
You met me, right?
I have, but I think that's also telling. And I think it's telling that like we've gone this long, but I am starting to... I genuinely insight into me, I did not start with this level of optimism at all, but I am starting to feel more like...
or in general?
Just life. No, I'm kidding. Just tonight with this topic, because of my frustrations with the overall search in U.S. soccer, the more we talk about it, the more enthusiasm I'm actually getting. And it is really the first time I've been excited to talk U.S. national team in quite some time. Yeah. I feel like I'm getting there. So let's keep it going, shall we?
All right. Well, look, I want to say, though, there's a chance that it all flames out because possession football doesn't work.
There's a chance everything fails.
But let's try. Let's give it a go and see what happens.
You're darn right. You're darn right.
Oh, multiple people asked.
They sure did.
We wouldn't even have time to list all this. Is there a chance that Gregg Berhalter adheres to Tab Ramos' tactics to keep continuity with the USA's youth teams?
Nope.
There's not, is that? Because if you've watched the Tab Ramos team, or anything, because he's the youth technical director, so it's not the U20 team, it's all the way down. And actually, if you listen to there's a Scuffed podcast where they interview, Adam interviews Tab Ramos and gets him to explain his style. It's 4-3-3, where you pressure quite high, win the ball back, counter-attack quickly.
Yep.
It's your wingers have their heels on the touchline, right? That is very different to Justin Merrim, wingers coming inside and fullbacks overlapping. It is a very different system. It is not slow possession-based football. Tab Ramos is about not long ball, but get the ball forward quickly, make sort of positive forward progress as quickly as is not clumsily possible.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
And I shouldn't have said no so flippantly, or nope, I believe I said. So
well, I said the same thing, just with more words.
But, true. But, I do wonder if maybe as part of the interview that there was a question about that, about like, this is what we've been doing at youth level. So. This is what Tab Ramos does. How do you anticipate incorporating those tactics and those players into your senior teams in the next 4 years or so?
Yeah.
And I would imagine Berhalter had an answer for that, and maybe did then have to think about how he would go about incorporating that style and that approach. And I'm hoping it wasn't just, oh no, he'll change to suit what I want to do, especially given that Tab Ramos has just won U20 CONCACAF championship.
I do think... to give Tab Ramos credit, I don't think he's ever said, I'm doing this because this is the best way to play and the men's national team coach should be copying what I do. I think they do that at the youth level so that you can go from the U16, 17, 18, 19, 20 team And I think he actually said this in the Scuffed podcast. I really recommend listening to it, so that you can click into any of those teams.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that there's easy, fluid movement between the different age groups, and you immediately can go there and be like, I'm a number 7 in this team. Okay, right wing, Hill's on the touchline. I know the job. I've been taught it. So it's not necessarily that Tab Ramos is trying to set a style for all of American soccer to play to the senior level, but it's also a shame that there isn't complete top-to-bottom continuity.
I would agree with that. Before we move on, quick question about Tab Ramos.
Yeah.
He has never said he was interviewed, right?
Yes.
He's never said he was not interviewed.
He also said that he wasn't offered the job on an interim basis and turned it down. He said no, that didn't. He denied that happened. This
is based on just nothing more than my hunch. I think he's the 4th player who's interviewed, or 4th person. I think Tab Ramos got an interview. That's my completely uninformed. Haven't heard that from a single person. But if it were 4 people, he was to be the 4th one in my mind.
Do you think he knew about it? It could have been like Tab Ramos and Ernie Stewart were both at Soccer House, and he went to get coffee, and Ernie Stewart just casually asked him a few questions. Like, hey, did you see The Walking Dead?
Well, we know Ernie Stewart doesn't.
Did you see The Walking Dead last night? Did you? And then I'll slip in some questions and be like, yep, interviewed him.
Yeah, I guess in retrospect. You don't have casual conversations about The Walking Dead. That's not a thing that happens. You just have rants about them, I think. Moving on to maybe questions about the future and expectations. At Josh Dollar, DOLAR. How soon should we be expecting results and see the formation start to take shape?
Ooh, it's tough, right? Because February is weird because it's basically MLS players only, and it's the first camp. But I would say this. If you've got a long week or at least or more before that game against Costa Rica, I actually think that if Gregg Berhalter as an international manager is going to work, then seeing a team capable of deploying that style after a week in camp, it might be kind of a big deal if we don't see it work in that first game, or if we see players not know how it's working. I'll be panicking. I'll be running around this office panicking.
Wait, you'd be panicking?
Yeah, because then it means that it's not possible to implement this in just a week leading up to an international game.
All right, I wouldn't go that far.
2 weeks,
because
maybe.
It's still you still got to figure out the personnel, and if it's your first camp ever, you're like, oh, that one won't work. We got to try this. We got to change this around.
Get some herbal tea just in case.
I would go back to Jurgen Klopp, definitely not Klinsmann. Jurgen Klopp first taking over Liverpool, and in the first game after he was appointed, where he'd had a week of training, you could start to see some of the honey and packs, some of the pressing, some of the counter pressing.
You should hire him then.
And I would have been fine with that. But I go back to that, which is in a week, I think you can start to see little signs of influence.
Yeah.
I think maybe if you even just see the tempo look a bit better. The players look like they want to be there in training, which is what we saw at the very beginning of the Saracen era when there was lots of goofiness and camaraderie. If you see those types of things return on and off the field, I think that factors in too.
So you're saying in February we don't need to see the entire this looks exactly like the cut of the screw. You just see little pieces of it, then it means it's working.
But if I do see Christian Pulisic constantly holding space in the middle and moving away from defenders and then laying the ball off and then getting it back and combining, then I'll be like, Gregg Berhalter is a genius.
You won't be seeing that in February, but I get what you're saying.
Don't tell me what I can and can't do. But yeah, you're right.
To answer Josh's question then, I would say the Gold Cup is the answer, right? Because you have the February camp, then you'll have 2 March friendlies that, again, yet to be scheduled, but you presumably will have the full national team called up for that. Then you'll get, I think, a couple in June, a couple pre-Gold Cup friendlies. Then you'll have the Gold Cup group stage. And I want to say, at least the second game of the group stage, there'll have been enough reps to hopefully see something that resembles what this national team is going to look like.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. But I wanted to, before we move on to another question, I wanted to bring up something that you and I talked about briefly, which is your idea about this upcoming year, 2019, and the relative ease of the potential schedule. Because I think that's worth mentioning here as well.
Yeah, have we not already said that?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this year, next year, 2019, there's the February game, couple of March friendlies, we don't know, but then there's Gold Cup entirely against CONCACAF, Nations League entirely against CONCACAF in September, October, then maybe November World Cup qualifying entirely against CONCACAF, and it's going to be weaker opposition early on. So we have a relatively easy year. We're not playing Germany or France or Italy this year.
Yeah, so it allows you to...
We should not have played any of those teams this past year either.
Unless we wanted to lower the bar to make everything look better. But yeah, I think that gives you that opportunity to figure out how to play against that type of opposition that you'll be playing against in World Cup qualifiers and regional competitions, but it allows you to continue to improve your squad, which leads me to this question. I'm going to jump Jersey Jonathan. We'll come back to him. I'm going to go to at not_Rossi.
That's exactly what someone who was called Rossi would call themselves.
That was going to be my joke. And then it was, nice try, Giuseppe Rossi. What does realistic success look like in 12 months, 2 years, and at the end of the next World Cup?
Okay, so after 12 months, it will be, December 2019?
Yep.
I would expect to at least have made the Gold Cup final.
Yep.
Right? I'd like to win it. If we lose to Mexico, that's not uncommon, right? It's almost like get to the Gold Cup final, then it's kind of 50-50, do we beat Mexico or not?
And worth noting at that point, and I to give credit where credit is due, I believe this is another Doyle point. So, Matt Doyle is smart. But he was noting that Mexico are in a roughly similar position to we are. They are potentially going to – they're going to point at Tata Martino. Let's be real. It's going to be Tata Martino. But there's all of the infighting within the federation.
The Tata Martino showdown in the Gold Cup final.
Yeah.
That Gold Cup just got more interested.
It gets even more interesting when you think that we have no idea who the Mexican players are going to be. There's a lot of infighting. A lot of the veteran players are not being included. So it is not...
Oh, the Max and Herc show had a really good breakdown of why certain players have been excluded.
There you go.
Yeah.
But so this is not by any means a unified, the unified sort of strong Mexico team that I feel saw in the last World Cup. It is a Costa Rica team that is not the Costa Rica team from 2014. They are weakened. They need to rebuild as well.
I think the problem is it kind of is the Costa Rica team from 2014.
Right, exactly. Exactly. But all that is to say that it is an opportunity for the United States to go in there, and they shouldn't approach that Gold Cup as look, it's a new coach.
Win that thing.
It's an opportunity to win stuff
Copa
and
de Oro,
reinstall confidence.
Yes.
In a time that I feel like that might be the Gold Cup that people care about the most of any Gold Cup ever.
Yeah.
So that's inside of a year.
Okay,
what about 2 years?
Well, also, within that 12 months, also then there's the Nations League.
Yeah.
I would like to see us go away in CONCACAF and win.
Yep.
Right? Because there's going to be 2 away games in our group. We don't know who they're going to be. There'll be 2 away games in CONCACAF. Go and win away in CONCACAF. That would be realistic success.
Because I don't know if you know this, Darryl, but it turns out that 1 win equals 3 draws. So maybe just win that 1, or maybe 2, and then suddenly you're in a way better position.
All right, so 2 years. Where are we then? December 2020. If things shake out as expected, there'll be a Copa America in 2020. The rumor is it will be hosted in the United States, right? It might happen late again, like the 2016 one did in terms of announcements. Yeah. A good showing in that competition where we at least don't embarrass ourselves against the bigger South American nations.
Yeah, right? We at least don't embarrass ourselves. Here's my question.
Quarterfinals for the Copa America.
Is it okay with you if it's the United States going back to slightly better than the USA-Belgium game from 2014, which was, Tim Howard standing on his head. But are you okay with us going into that, 2 years down the road in a theoretical potential Copa America? Are you okay with the United States doing a, bunker and counter approach again?
Because depends who we're playing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it is Colombia, again, a team that we have struggled with monumentally.
We are not going to outpossess Colombia. I mean, again, that is one of the big asks about Gregg Berhalter, right?
Yep.
Can he set up a team to be super defensive and counter if we have to? That's going to be a thing we're going to learn in a couple of years. Maybe that's, I think you were getting towards this anyway, maybe that is what we call success in 2 years, is a game plan that makes us competitive with a team that has better players than we do.
Yeah, 100%. Because one thing I keep going back to in my mind is we made it out of the group stage at the Copa America Centenario. I wouldn't say it was through a consistent game plan that made sense every time.
We punched our way out of the group stage.
We sure
Copa America Centenario.
We sure did.
End of next World Cup.
Yep. World Cup champions.
Winners.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to do. I mean, get to it. How about that?
Yep.
Qualify for the 2022 World Cup.
Yep. I mean, that is enough for me.
It'd be better than reset. And then, obviously, get out of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, make it out of the round of 16.
And then once you're in the quarterfinals, anything can happen.
You got to win that one.
Champions!
Yeah. And
no, but seriously, qualify for the World Cup.
And arrest Torsten Franks. Jersey Jonathan, is there a scenario where he could lose his job due to the USMNT's Gold Cup performance?
It would have to be real bad, right? We'd have to lose to some really small nations in the group stage, and there'd just be uproar because now we're worse than El Salvador.
Yeah.
Right?
I think...
it would have to be pretty bad.
I think the only way... Because that's not going to happen. And it's not even no disrespect to El Salvador, but we're going to get one of those. We're going to get Cuba, who we beat 6-0 every time. I would say the only way it happens, I mean, yes, I think if we didn't make it out of the group stage, things have gone horribly wrong. The only other way is maybe if it is a sort of implosion in the semifinal, for example, or even in the final, and everybody just hates each other and it's already really bad. If it's very obvious that, Gregg Berhalter can't handle the locker room, can't handle the pressure, doesn't know how to game plan.
And we're about to get deep into World Cup qualifying in late 2019.
Late
2019? No. We're about to start World Cup qualifying.
Yeah. If he keeps writing Federico Higuain onto the starting 11 and then he's just playing with 10 men every single time, that's a problem. So, I mean, but really, short of catastrophic shortcoming, no, I don't think.
If we lose in the semi-final, they'll roll with it.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
At least because they'd probably have to pay him up.
Onwards and upwards, exactly.
One more left here.
Yep.
Okay, Aoguna619 asks, how do you guys see Berhalter approaching dual nationals? What will his sales pitch be?
I mean,
buy one, get one free.
My answer to the first part is that I don't think that's his job. I mean, I think that is why you hire Ernie Stewart. Ernie Stewart's job is to go approach dual nationals. It's his job to set up a network where dual nationals are being approached.
So he's like, I'm a dual national, you're a dual national, let's be dual nationals together.
But I think with that in mind,
here's my card.
That's Ernie Stewart, and it's Gregg Berhalter. That the pitch is like, we have experience, we like have the connections. Ernie Stewart speaks Dutch. I don't know what Berhalter speaks, maybe a couple different languages, who knows. But either way, right? I think you can get the idea that we're interested in a variety of players to perform a variety of tasks in a variety of positions, and I think the idea of nobody's position is guaranteed, you got to earn it. That means that if you're a young player deciding between the USA and Mexico, and you're probably not going to start over, I don't know, Hector Herrera, or I guess that's a bad example right now, but if you're not going to beat that person out, but the United States has these opportunities and a coach who seems like he's got a game plan and a GM who seems like he's got a vision, I think that's the sales pitch.
Ooh, and what about if it's like Alex Mendez and those guys, if they're wavering? It sounds like Tab Ramos is also involved in keeping those guys.
I think that's a big part of it too.
On the US side,
yeah. I mean, I think that all factors into it.
I mean, honestly, also his sales pitch could be, look at this team. We play possession soccer. It's fun soccer. Come play for this team. You can be a part of this, right? So the sales pitch isn't like promising them something. It's making an environment that is sort of fun to be in, playing fun soccer, and it's a welcoming environment. Yeah. That's the sales pitch, right? My team is good. Come play for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great sales pitch.
Not we need you because we're bad.
I would maybe this. You tell me if you think I'm nuts for this one, but I would say, sorry, I'm laughing at your joke. But I would add this though. I do feel like some dual nationals who maybe have flown under the radar. Go look at their Twitter followers when they first get discovered. Like, what is it, like Jordan Theosin Sibachu or whatever? When it was first realized that he could play for the U.S. national team, he was in like the French second division. I think he had like 500 Twitter followers. A person with 500 Twitter followers is going to respond to your tweets. And I think there is an element of like fans can have an impact. Fans can be like, why isn't this guy getting coverage? Brian Sciaretta is on the ball with so many dual nationals, but I'm sure he is always happy to hear about more.
AmericanSoccerNow.com if you want to read Brian Sciaretta.
And we're always happy to hear about more as well, and then we will do what we can. But I do think also fans can play a part, and supporters of the national team can play a part of watch more games, see who's got an American mom or an American dad. Maybe give him a call. Maybe send him a tweet. Say, hey, think about the USA.
All right, this show's going to be long, right? But I love it.
Yep.
We have 2 questions that came via email.
Oh, boy.
You ready for these?
Sure.
Okay. This one I don't understand as well because I think there's an NFL parallel. It's from Billy Harding. Billy Harding says, Bill Belichick stated in an interview years ago that being the head coach of the 1995 Cleveland Browns, who moved to Baltimore the following season, gave him better insights in coaching due to how the Browns disenfranchised the organization. Do you think the Crew owner disenfranchising Columbus will make Gregg Berhalter a better coach for the US national team, who have also disenfranchised their fan base? I assume that means US Soccer have also disenfranchised their fan base and seem disorganized. If so, what lessons do you think he has learned that will improve the US men's national team?
I really can't say if there's a correlation between Bill Belichick's time with the Cleveland Browns. But what I can say is that, yeah, probably, that it helps him in the sense that he's had to deal with a very negative situation in Columbus where he really can't do that much. He can't come out and say, yeah, Anthony Brecourt's a jerk. That's not how that works.
He can just tell the players, focus on the game, we'll try and get through this, let's make the best we can. And so they made the playoffs in a year when the team nearly disappeared.
Absolutely. So I think he, at least if nothing else, he has the experience of in a hostile or unfriendly or unfortunate or very difficult environment, he knows how to compartmentalize and separate and deal with the issues on the field. And I mean, say what you want, like maybe he could have been more vocal, but I haven't heard anything that he was like anti-Save the Crew. I don't think anybody was, except for maybe Anthony Brecourt. So, but I think that can help him at least in terms of how you deal with the pressure and some of the negative aspects of coaching the national team.
Yeah, and there's a way of communicating that to the players as well, right? Like shut all the other stuff out. What happens on the field is important, as an example. All right, Jesse Frankel says, 20 years from now, when we have ESPN 30 for 30's hashtag crew saved, I think it should be hashtag saved the crew, right? And USMNT Rising from the Ashes, the 2 ESPN 30 for 30 films. What is the chance that we find out Berhalter was originally and always the choice for US men's national team, but told US Soccer back in October 2017 that he wouldn't take the job until the Columbus/Austin situation was sorted? What are the chances?
I love this question. I first have to say, the crew are definitely saved, right? Like, we still got some paperwork to do.
So it's not official, but I read a story today that they're already looking at replacement coaches and a replacement GM or technical director, sporting director, because that was Berhalter's double job. He's a bit Vermeesi in that way. Yeah. And they're already interviewing, I think, Caleb Porter, who's available, and I think has Ohio connections through Akron, obviously. And, former US striker who was with DC, assistant coach Josh Wolf.
Okay.
And interviewing Josh Wolf. And apparently it's the new ownership group who is involved in the interviewing. This is all like, I can't confirm this, but this is what I've read has been rumoured.
Yes.
So that's all to say that it hasn't been signed off, the paperwork hasn't been done, and an announcement hasn't been made, but it looks like it's about to be.
Yeah. So I would say, on the one hand, it's not as big of a deal because it is still the case that an ownership group is coming in to buy the crew with Gregg Berhalter leaving. So in that regard, like, I don't know if him leaving back then, like, if people still would be interested in buying. But I do think that if he left at the end of last season before this one began, I have a hard time believing that anybody could have stepped in and done the job he did.
Yeah.
And I do think being successful on the field kept the interest. Maybe it showed the new investors, like, hey, this is still a good team. They're making the playoffs. They're worth that much more money. So I do think that him being there has helped. I don't think that he said, I'm not leaving this team.
Me neither.
Yeah. But I will say, maybe you could extend it to when Ernie Stewart delayed until August and then started the whole, establishing a profile. Maybe it was because we know we got to wait till November when the season's over.
Okay, I think that's a good answer. But basically, no, right?
Yeah.
He didn't put off the national team for a year to save the crew. Unfortunately, it would be a lovely heroic story.
That would be lovely.
Okay. We're an hour and a half into this podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk Tyler Adams.
Of course.
Tyler Adams. He runs for 90 minutes. We've waited 90 minutes to talk about him. The announcement was he is going to RB Leipzig. Who knew?
Who knew?
Everybody.
As Jeff Carlisle said, the second worst kept secret in U.S. soccer.
How do you want to talk about this? Are we excited? Are we worried?
I'm excited.
Yes, right?
I mean, I think it's in a similar vein to the Berhalter story. It's like, I'm happy it's done. I'm happy it's announced, it's official. It's not a thing that we have to ponder and wonder and speculate upon. It seems like he will go in January. Then we'll figure out what happens because it seems like RB Leipzig are pretty set in a couple of the positions where he'll be playing.
They have. So we thought maybe an initial introduction to the Leipzig first team would be at right back. Yep. That's what the New York Red Bulls did for him in his first season. They already have two young right backs, right? A French young right back and a German young right back. They are not hurting.
Lucas Klosterman and Nordi Mukiele.
Yeah, those are the two right backs already. So it's unlikely he sees any time there.
Yep.
They also have a bunch of midfielders.
They do.
Yeah.
So I think our expectations should be, I'm still very excited about this move. I'm still very enthusiastic. I still think it's the right time for him to go. I would like to see him. I'm not going to be like, when's he getting minutes? When's he going to get minutes? I think he should focus.
I will, but I won't say it out loud.
That's fair. I think I want this 6 months to be getting used to it, getting acclimatized to playing in Germany, to doing regular training, to learning the language. Sure. And then I think maybe we see him get minutes. That would be very positive. If we start seeing him get minutes this season, it speaks volumes about
like any minutes.
Yeah, I genuinely feel that way. And then we see in preseason. But I think it takes 6 months. It's hard enough to just, if you're already an established pro moving from, I don't know, Borussia Dortmund to Liverpool, that January move can be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And it takes a good amount of time to kind of gel and blend in and have a preseason and get used to everybody.
I'll also be looking for transfers out of RB Leipzig in January, right? Because every player that moves from RB Leipzig to somewhere else puts Adams further up the order.
Worth noting, Lucas Klosterman, one of the preferred right backs, has been heavily linked with Arsenal and Bayern Munich.
All right, wow.
I can't see him replacing Joshua Kimmich, but who knows?
Oh, Kimmich's been playing midfield, though.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's for the German national team.
Nah, never mind.
Excuse me.
You raised my hopes and then dashed them quite quickly.
Deme has been linked, the midfielder has been linked with West Ham.
You got it.
Yeah, so I don't know, just look for moves away from RB Leipzig.
Yeah.
It all helps the Tyler Adams cause. The sad part is he won't be available for January camp.
It's true.
Because he'll be in East Germany. And if he doesn't get many minutes, then there's a chance
he'll
that
be in East Germany.
When it comes around to March for those friendlies, it might be a tough call-up, right? Because he hasn't played much in the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, and that will be interesting to see how Berhalter. I don't think it'll be such a big factor in the beginning, but as time progresses, who gets call-ups and who deserves those call-ups,
what you have to be doing.
Evaluates them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So there's all of that as well. Anything else to say on Tyler Adams?
No, I mean, other than that, I think, again, to reiterate, I think it's the right move at the right time. You got to kind of take that shot and kind of move your game to the next level.
Yep.
I think I'm very appreciative of the Red Bulls and all that they did to help him develop, but I'm excited to see what he does with a different Red Bull organization.
Yeah, we'll have Jesse Marsh there to sort of show him the ropes and maybe, put a word in the coach's ear like, hey.
I smell a body comedy.
Hey. Tyler and Jesse go interrailing.
Yeah.
Final thing on today's show, we're very much looking to the future with the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
Yes. Worth noting up front, we did get a scouting report from Alexander King about Tyler Adams, but it was pretty much Tyler Adams is moving to RB Leipzig.
All right, well, thank you, Alexander, anyway.
I'm assuming you all will talk about this on the show.
Yeah.
Next report comes from Ian Shank, scouting Fernando Arce Jr., the 22-year-old American midfielder on loan at Dorados from Club Tijuana.
Same ownership group, I now know, thanks to Max and Herc.
There you go. Yeah. Arce played the full 90 in midfield as Dorados won the home leg of the Ascencio MX final 1-0 over San Luis. Arce also made a valiant attempt at the headed assist on the goal, only to be outjumped by his own teammate who did get the assist. Arce and Dorados traveled to San Luis for the return leg late Sunday night, which is when we recorded this, but we've been recording for so long that I don't know what happened.
So we'll check that score Monday morning.
Sure.
Richie Garcia is scouting Emerson Hindman, the 22-year-old American midfielder on loan at Hibernian from Bournemouth.
He's on loan at Purgatory.
Richie says Emerson hasn't been playing due to an ankle injury suffered in early November. I knew it'd be bad news when you said that. And his loan move ends in January. Emerson had been getting consistent minutes, but Hibs were in poor form and had little offensive output. It wasn't clear if Hindman fit their preferred attacking system, so a return to Bournemouth could be good.
Mm-hmm. I believe Sir Mix-a-Lot is a Hindman. Emerson is a Hindman. Brian Hoysa scouting Sergino Dest, 18-year-old American right back for Ajax.
Good news, right?
Yep. Dest started at right back on Friday for young Ajax and scored their second goal in a 5-2 win over FC Twente. Dest made an overlapping run in the box and one-timed his shot smoothly past the keeper for his first pro goal. Then, weirdly enough, he went and dispossessed Lainez one more time.
You know who's a good future Gregg Berhalter style right back?
Sergino Dest.
Sergino Dest. I hadn't thought about that. He's definitely one of the next generation that will fit the Berhalter system.
Get him on that plane to wherever Gregg Berhalter is.
Ben Richards is scouting Efra Alvarez, the 16-year-old Mexican-American midfielder for LA Galaxy 2.
Not going to lie, when this first came in, I was really hoping that it was going to be like, he's decided to play for the USA. He loves Gregg Berhalter. Ben
Richards says Efrain Alvarez took home the 2018 USL Young Player of the Year award. He absolutely should have.
Yep.
After a season that saw him score 12 goals in 17 appearances, bag 2 hat-tricks, assist a further 3, and turn 16 years old.
Wow.
He was 15. He has recently been called up to the Mexican U17 squad to participate in the UC Cup this December. I don't know what that is. Which, as far as Ben can tell, based on Google Translate, is a mini tournament hosted by Club Deportivo Universidad Católica. Meanwhile, due to end-of-season roster decisions, the Galaxy currently have 15 active players, one of whom is Efrain Alvarez. I'd forgotten about this because Alex Mendez has gone. Ulysses Yanez has left and he's like waiting to land somewhere.
Unattached FC.
I kind of forgot that Efrain Alvarez is younger.
Yep.
So he's still going to be there.
He's still hanging out.
We could see him in Major League Soccer next season.
We might good. Eric Edston, scouting Callum Hudson-Odoi, 18-year-old English forward for Chelsea.
CHO.
With Eden Hazard out injured, CHO got his first non-friendly goal and assist versus 10-men PAOK. I think that's PAOK. Sarri's comments after the game gave further fuel to loan rumors as he doesn't seem to trust Callum's ability to carry out defensive duties.
How about his ability to get a goal and an assist?
Yeah, right? Exactly. I like your defensiveness.
Oscar Leung is scouting Michael Obafemi.
Why are you looking at me? I didn't say it.
Michael Obafemi, the 18-year-old Irish forward for Southampton. I'm just heavily invested in the kids that won the U17 World Cup.
I see.
Obafemi made his senior Ireland debut in a 0-0 draw with Denmark. This is Michael Obafemi, scouted by Oscar Leung, becoming the first player born in the 2000s to represent the team. He then got his first Saints start as they drew Leicester 0-0 and were knocked out of the League Cup on penalties, with manager Mark Hughes praising his energy and great, quote-unquote, performance.
There we go. Thomas Mendenhall scouting Lucas Paqueta, 21-year-old Brazilian midfielder for Flamengo. After concluding a successful 2018 campaign with Flamengo and earning his first international caps for Brazil, Paqueta made even more headlines when it was confirmed that he will be moving to AC Milan in the upcoming January transfer window.
Do you remember Paqueta? He played against the US, I believe, and caused us all kinds of trouble.
I do not, but I believe it.
Brandon Colvin is scouting Brahim Diaz.
I do remember him. Oh, no. Yep. Yes. I had blocked that out, and it all came roaring back.
Oh, yes, for Milan. Oh, Brandon Colvin is scouting Brahim Diaz, the 19-year-old Spanish wide forward from Manchester City. Brahim Diaz seems set to depart Man City, perhaps as soon as January. His current deal expires in the summer, and Diaz has refused to sign a new contract with City, despite manager Pep Guardiola's public attestations of the club's interest in re-signing him. Real Madrid appear poised to sign him on a free, though PSG are also reportedly interested. He's the next Jadon Sancho, isn't he?
It seems that way. Even while Jadon Sancho even while being 2 years older than Jadon Sancho. That's amazing. Guy Yodweb scouting Serge Gnabry, the 23-year-old German wide forward for Bayern Munich. Gnabry returned from a minor abductor injury, scoring his first ever brace for Bayern Munich against his former side Werder Bremen. Both goals involved Gnabry running into space with well-timed runs featuring both times. He got more good news when Arjen Robben announced that he would be leaving Bayern Munich this summer, with Frank Ribery likely to follow suit.
I believe I kind of predicted that when we talked about Thomas. It doesn't take huge powers of prediction, but I did predict that a week ago.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I'll take it. If you would like to support the Total Soccer Show and be part of the Scouting Network, then we welcome it.
We do.
Because it helps us keep the show in good financial health.
We welcome you.
We welcome you at totalsoccershow.com/join. Totalsoccershow.com/join. The link will be in the show notes.
Financial health. This is the part of the show where I become one of the Migos members, and I just do a lot of ad-libs in the background.
Skirt.
Skirt.
The other thing is I want to give some scouting advice to people. I think I'd mentioned this before. If you are struggling to find news about your player, Twitter.com. Go to Twitter.com, search your player's name, click latest.
Yes, and especially because...
I was hoping for some Migos back in...
I had gotten the distinct impression that you were done with the Migos ad-lib.
No, I was staring at you hoping you would do it.
Ad-lib. But in that case, I think now I'm just doing Kenan Thompson from SNL, but whatever. I think it's also the case, going back to my Twitter point about not having many followers, it is the case that a lot of these young players... You can also, get in early on the Twitter train when they only have 400 friends, and then you can become Twitter friends, and then they'll know you, and then you become their agent and best friend. And then there you go, life's set. That's what the Scouting Network offers.
That is what the Scouting Network offers. I wouldn't encourage hassling your players on Twitter, though.
You don't think so?
Mostly search their name on Twitter, click latest, and you will see any stories and video clips and highlight videos, which a lot of great people put highlight videos on Twitter.
Highlight videos.
So you can really get a really good look at your up-and-coming young player. TotalSoccerShow.com/join.
Yeah.
I feel like it's time to end the show.
You think? You think so?
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about Gregg Berhalter today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back again later this week. There's probably going to be more Gregg Berhalter chat as the news conference happens on Tuesday. There's a whole Premier League schedule in midweek. I believe.
Are you trying to make this our longest show ever?
Plays Manchester United. It's going to be a pick home show. Yeah. I'm really letting people know what's coming this week. I think Arsenal plays Manchester United, and then we're also going to build towards MLS Cup this weekend. All right. So listeners, thank you for listening, especially if you made it this far, and we'll talk to you again soon.